So, like many entrepreneurs, I have not had a very linear path. But if I go back to my very first job that I ever had, was a caddy at a local private country club. My family did not play golf. I did not play golf. I still to this day rarely play golf. I looked at it really as a business opportunity even at 15. And the reason I bring that up is that was really my first dive into business, hospitality, and I loved the idea of not knowing how much I was going to make that day.
I'm excited to be joined by Brian Burke, the co-founder and CEO of Food First Travel, a members-only luxury travel concierge specializing in food and beverage tourism. In this episode, Brian and I dive into the exciting world of travel and experience curation. We explore how certain ventures are changing the way people think about leisure and luxury, offering insights into crafting memorable and transformative experiences for discerning travelers who are looking for more than just a getaway. We'll also touch on the challenges faced by those with limited vacation time and the disappointment that can come from uninspiring trips. Brian shares how personalized attention and creativity can elevate a standard holiday into something truly extraordinary. This episode is packed with inspiration, innovation, and forward-thinking ideas on how to curate life's best moments. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting installment of the Hero of the Hour podcast. I'm here with the fabulous Brian Burke today, and Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I've been excited for this for a long time.
So, before we get started, love to know about the genesis of Food First Travel. Let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about. Tell everybody who's watching this a little bit about Food First Travel.
Sure. So Food First Travel is a members-only luxury travel concierge for food and beverage tourism. We are limiting our membership to 100 high net worth families for two main reasons. One, to be able to focus on relationship capital and building relationships that last beyond just a transactional, typical travel agency relationship. And two, to be able to deliver extraordinary hospitality. And those are two fundamental pillars for us. So we deliver a completely custom, bespoke travel agency or elevated travel agency experience. And we have relationships with the world's best restaurants, bars, wineries, vineyards, producers, hotels. And we travel through the lens of food first. We have a very literal company name. And our origin story is back in 2018, my wife and I traveled to Panzano in Chianti, which is a little hilltop town in Tuscany, which is home to arguably the world's best butcher, definitely the best butcher in Italy, Dario Cecchini. And we were able to shadow and work with him for the entire day. And we started at 7 a.m. and it ended at 10 p.m. And we got to really see the story behind the food. And we got to really experience the traditions from the people who really lived them every day. And my wife and I went back to our hotel in between the lunch and dinner session. And we just sat down and said, this was the real Italy. We were not at a tourist landmark with hundreds of people. It was really at the heart of what Italy is. And that was kind of the genesis of, this is how we want to travel. And then a few years later, COVID hit, and we were about to launch the company right before that. And I think it was a blessing in disguise because it really enabled us to go beyond Italy. And now we're in France, Germany, Portugal, Spain, and the United States. And now we really have the infrastructure around being able to provide that experience for our members, as opposed to kind of fixing the plane as we flew it if we launched right before the pandemic. So that's where we are today. We just launched in July. We have a few members on board already and excited to see what the future holds.
You know, it's first of all, I think naming something
properly is a good first step to start to have a successful business. So I think Food First Travel, gives people an idea of what it is. But why don't you talk about the culinary experience? Talk about the food. Talk about each of the elements. Talk about what you can expect and what the experience would look like. Let's start with food.
Sure. So our members care about the story behind the food, and every plate of food has a story. Every chef has a story, and that could be the history of it. That can be the technique behind it. Our members really will seek out adventures or culinary adventures for that in particular. It doessistine mean that we can't book a private tour of the Sistine Chapel. We can do that because we have to be able to, obviously, there's more beyond just the food on some of these trips, but our members really come through that lens. So whether it is eating at a Michelin star restaurant, but getting a private tour of the kitchen from the chef, or getting a different wine experience at a top winery in the world that you wouldn't be able to just buy. Our goal is to deliver experiences that money can't buy. And when you're working with, as you know, high net worth individuals, access, exclusivity, those are things that you want to be able to deliver on to really elevate that client experience and to be able to be different from just your typical travel agency. We should also mention that I want to create a member experience. So what does that look like? We have select member events throughout the year. So we'll have an International Food First Travel Classic, which will be held in Rome next year and Paris the following year. That'll be a 3-day international event that's complimentary to our members with their membership. We have our signature private dinners, which will be in all of the major metropolitan hubs around the country. So think New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Houston, and we'll do a few other cities too. And those are going to be held at top Michelin star restaurants, all the way down to the mom and pop shop that, I always say there's luxury, not just in, the lifestyle that we typically think. There could be luxury found in simplicity. So it's our job to be able to find out some of those regional cuisines and regional experiences as well. And then we have our member wine program, where we expertly curate wines from awarded and boutique vineyards and wineries, and we deliver it to you monthly. And we package this all up with really going after a region of the month every month. So people really get an in-depth dive of Tuscany or an in-depth dive of Burgundy, or it's not just a flyby overview of what we're doing. We really delve into the details of it.
Is it a package deal? Can you be part of Food First Travel only, or can you only be part of the wine experience, or or is it a package?
So it's 2 membership tiers right now. We've gotten a lot of feedback, some very valuable feedback, including from you, as far as how to package this up and fine tune it for the person who wants to be able to travel to Europe every month, or the person who is tied to a schedule that is only going to be able to travel 2 weeks out of the year. So it's an annual dues membership model. So there are no commissions, no fees, which is often the most negative or unethical part of the travel agency business. And so, yes, it's a package deal. It's a membership. We want to be more than just your transactional trip. We want to be able to bring you along a journey throughout the year.
For people that don't come into the wine and spirits world, they probably don't know what WSET Level 3 is and the education that it takes to get there. Why don't you tell people what WSET Level 3 means? What does that stand for?
Sure. So WSET is the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, and they are globally recognized as the international standard in wine education. There's really 2 different leaders in that. There's the WSET, which is more for wine enthusiasts that do not want to pursue sommelier status or to be in the service part of the industry. The other side of it would be the court of the sommeliers. It actually started out of one interest. I love to collect wine, but on top of that, I was very bored during the pandemic, and I decided to start my journey and do this even before, I knew that we were going to officially launch this company. So I started doing that during the pandemic, achieved level 1 and level 2 status. I'm pursuing my level 3. Level 4, there's only about 7,000 people in the world that have that. That is a very intense with their flagship school and doing multiple tastings. And we'll see if I get there. But this all started out of a love of wine and really just as a wine enthusiast, not trying to be an expert. And honestly, I don't really tell too many people about it. Now I do, because now it's applicable to the business. But a few close friends of mine love to bust me on that.
I can see that. How does we mentioned when we had a previous conversation? Do you use technology, or how do you use technology to enhance the travel experience without compromising the personal touch?
So we do. We use it more through our survey mechanisms and being able to figure out exactly what you like, whether, it's climate, experiences, food, wine. We are going to be doing a lot of, I would say, internal technology measures, but this will not be an app, which there's plenty of great options out there for apps and memberships to be able to access and view properties and things like that. This will be more of an old school approach to what we're doing, because I think that our clients require it. In relation to technology, though, we are going to be making a big investment in the next few months in content, because obviously travel and food are two of the most liked and engaged topics on social media. I'm not a social media expert. I'm partnering with someone who has Rolex, Patek Philippe, the PGA Tour as part of their clientele. So he really gets the luxury space. And we will be putting out a lot of content through the storytelling lens. I want to make sure that I know my place in this industry. I am not a chef. I love to cook, but I do love the storytelling behind it. So I think that's going to be really our niche. And then that will incorporate a few other ways that we'll be using technology.
Are you obviously you're very passionate about this? So I probably should have started with this, but tell us a little bit of how you got started to get to Food First Travel. Like, just tell people about how 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 you woke up and said, this is what my wife and I want to do with the rest of our lives, or at least the next chapter of our lives.
So, like many entrepreneurs, I have not had a very linear path. But if I go back to my very first job that I ever had, was a caddy at a local private country club. My family did not play golf. I did not play golf. I still to this day rarely play golf. I looked at it really as a business opportunity even at 15. And the reason I bring that up is that was really my first dive into business, hospitality, and I loved the idea of not knowing how much I was going to make that day. And that if someone liked me and I was able to deliver them not only an extraordinary, hospitality level of experience, but they would, get to know me as the person and I would get to know them. That was really the genesis of, I think, all of my entrepreneurial, endeavors and hopes to, in the future. So that's where it started. Then I, went into ed tech. I've gone into education. I've kind of bounced around to a couple of different things. I've always had a through line of somewhere in education, hospitality, and sports. And I invested in another company, which we can get into or not, but that was a premium influencer and event space. And I saw again that I really fell in love with the hospitality, the membership side of things. And then my wife and I just love to travel the world. And our first trip that I had ever been to Europe, my wife had been in high school in an exchange program to Italy, but it was my first time, was in 2017 on our honeymoon. And like most things in my life, I tried to outsource it at first to a travel agent. And I am very meticulous when it comes to the research and what I want to do. So I handed over all the places basically that we wanted to go. And 4 or 5 different iterations of our itinerary came back, and none of the things that we wanted to do were on them. And I quickly realized that the reason they were not on there is because he was receiving, kickbacks, and, it's a margin-based business where if you give me $100, I charge you, I go out and buy something for 80 and I make $20. That's the typical travel agency experience. And I hated that. And we ended up getting rid of him. We used some of his itinerary because it was a busy time planning our wedding. And the first night in Rome, we had a terrible meal. And that was when I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do this myself. I know what I want to do. I stayed up the entire night on our first honeymoon night and completely jet lagged and planned the rest of our trip really through the food and wine lens. And that was the genesis of how I knew that moving forward, this is the way my wife and I would travel. And now our family of four would travel, but not, didn't go into it that way. And I think a lot of people think that if they land in Rome, that they can't have a bad meal. But it's just like landing in New York. Rome to me is Tribeca, New York, with the Coliseum around the block. And you can have a bad meal. And that quickly, I haven't had a bad meal in Italy since. So that was the eye-opening experience that kind of led us to our next trip. And then
it was so funny when you talk about Italy. I just got back from Rome myself, and from Tuscany. We spent 10 days in Italy this summer. And I learned that, having had many trips to Rome, you'd go to those tourist traps and it was like you're eating at the Olive Garden. Maybe it was below the Olive Garden. It was just some where you go, oh, wow, this is so pedestrian. And then you had to figure out it was just like New York, because you can, there are some of the best restaurants in the world in New York, but you can also get some pretty poor meals as well if you don't know what you're doing, if you go to the same old tourist traps that they send you to. And so
right.
I think that's so. Yeah, it seems to me that what I like so much about what you guys are doing is that you've finally got people on your side. There's nobody using your money to leverage their profitability. You've got somebody with a flat fee, with a trusted advice to get you the exact experience that you and your family want to have. And and by the way, this is not just for a couple. This is for people that have children and experience and want to have the best of what life has to offer. And not that it's inexpensive, but it's not unaffordable either.
Absolutely. And we're now a family of four, and we have a 3.5-year-old and a newborn, 8 weeks old yesterday. So we are definitely going to be the people who travel with our children. And I think that takes even a different skill set in making sure that everything is planned correctly when you're traveling with young children. So that is definitely something that we can work with. And I do want to make a note here too, and especially because you get the difference because you work in the finance industry. But a lot of people hear high net worth and they, in their minds, are thinking ultra high net worth. So ultra high net worth, obviously being 30 million or more of net worth, we are going to work with clients like that. And we already have a few that are in that class. But we also have people who are younger families, on the upward trajectory of their career, and we're working with them as well. And again, like you said, it's not an inexpensive product, but it's absolutely worth the investment when you think about, especially traveling with young kids, that you don't ever have to think about anything. You don't ever have to worry about anything. And the concierge model is just going to skyrocket, whether it's medicine or, personal assistance. And I think this is just the next piece of it. And a lot of travel agents got swept up, unfortunately, during the pandemic and are really no longer in existence. And I think it's a great opportunity for, people like us to come in and innovate and change the model and not have to worry about dollars and cents, but the experience that we're able to deliver our members.
It's one thing for people that are, let's call it, retired or semi-retired and have the ability to travel, every month or a couple of times a month. But, for so many people, they take 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of vacation. They work very, very hard. And this is the time for them and their family to have a great experience. And there's nothing to me more disappointing than when you've worked hard and you get the family together, for a week trip or a 2-week trip to something, and you come back and you go, wow, this was not what it was cracked up to be. It just wasn't, it wasn't what we had hoped. And it's such a letdown, as opposed to having something where the entire family goes, I can't wait for this because Brian is going to put together something that's going to rock my world. And, that's that I think is a place that's missing in the ecosystem. And I think you guys are going to fill that beautifully. And, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for what you're doing. Change the subject a little bit. You also do a little bit of angel investing in private equity. Do you want to, you alluded to that at the top of the broadcast. You want to share with our viewers what you're talking about now?
Sure. So like many younger angel investors, I formed an angel investment group out of necessity from an opportunity that was presented to myself. And we were early investors in a company called Thusio, which is
Yeah.
a premium business and influencer event space. We were acquired in November of 2021 by Triller. So now we are part of the Triller family of companies and services. But that was kind of my first, step into it. And quite frankly, it came through a friendship with one of the co-founders. And I was able to get a seat at the table that maybe I was a little bit too young or didn't have the net worth to be at, but ended up being able to raise enough money through my angel group that we are, outside of the founders, the second largest shareholders in the company. So, there's a lot of very prominent names that you and I would know on that cap table, but
Right.
we're pretty proud to be up
I'm well
there.
aware of it. I know Thuzio, and we know some of
Yeah.
the people that are there. It's an exclusive group.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it started, right? And I'm taking what I learned there. I also spent some time, about 2 years, being a strategic advisor to them, which really was basically a fractional CMO role, but then also my team doing all of the grunt work with the graphic design and the email marketing and things like that. So I got to experience not only as a member, but then as an investor and then as an advisor. And then I got really interested in being in the room when ideas were being formed with companies. I spent some time, a 2-year period, as a strategic advisor for Parent Square, which, if you're not in the ed tech space, Parent Square is a school home communications platform that is in now 20 million households across the country. They're in 80% of the households that have school-age children in the United States. So that was awesome to be able to have that experience and work with them. And then I just recently invested in a company called District Compass, where I know the founder very well, a former colleague of mine. And it is an AI-powered K-12 solution, partnered with a company called Thought Exchange, which is the leading AI survey-based organization. So, and I'm actually viewing, I just looked at a pitch yesterday. I have one coming next week. So really early on, but it's definitely something that's of interest to me. I love being involved in early stage businesses. I actually got pitched by an IU graduate yesterday that I met at the Dave Meltzer event. So, which is where you and I met. So,
Yeah.
we
So you mentioned that with Dave earlier. Who are some, obviously, for anyone watching this, they can see you're a young, successful guy. How who are some of the people that have inspired you, or some of the people you've come across in your travails that have either taught you or helped you to get where you are today?
So I think it was instilled in me very young that my parents would never use this word, but they were entrepreneurs. My dad had a telecommunications business that my mom also was a CFO and COO for, and they had that for over 2 decades. And I grew up around it. I wouldn't say that it was ever necessarily pushed on me or that I had a real view into what was going on operationally, but I kind of grew up in that stratosphere. So I would say my parents are first and foremost, but I've spent a lot of time. I started my first company at 24, and I think I had mentioned this in a previous conversation you and I had. I never really asked for help, and I never really had a true mentor. And I would read books, and I would be inspired by certain people. Some of the people, Robin Sharma is someone in the 5 a.m. club that I've really adopted a lot of his philosophies. Dave Meltzer is someone that I followed for a long time and reached out to earlier this year and was able to connect with him. Dave invited me on his podcast, invited me to speak at his VIP dinner, which you and I were on the panel for. And that relationship is going to continue to grow. Starting in a couple of months, Dave's going to coach me and show me the ropes for someone who's already been in the shoes that I want to be in. So I would say those would be 2 of the people: Robin Sharma, Dave Meltzer. And I consume a lot of personal development stuff, the Tony Robbins and Ed Milet. But it's really, as far as personal relationships, I did have, I might as well mention it. The co-founder of Thuzio was Tiki Barber, the former New York Giant. And by happenstance, I became friends with him. And that's how I got into that opportunity with Thuzio. And we've not only remained very good friends over the years, but that has opened up some doors for some other business opportunities for me as well. So I know you have a version of what I'm about to say. Is it's not what you know, it's who you know. My version of that is it's not what you know, it's who you know, but you control who you know. And I've just, spent a lot of time networking and getting on LinkedIn and really doing that since my younger days. And again, it's afforded me the opportunity to be in rooms that people were wondering why I was in them. But yeah, that's kind of where I would say my strategy was of growing, my network.
Well, I think that obviously you're very talented, and but
Thank you.
desire, and a guy who wants to be in the right rooms and wants to be there and expects to get what they're entitled to. In this world, you don't get what you need or what you deserve or what you want. You get what you expect, and I can tell you expect to be successful and continue to be even more successful. And I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. Any last thoughts, and how can people get a hold of you who want to at least understand what food first travel, whether that fits in with their lifestyle or not? And I encourage anybody that's listening to certainly reach out to Brian, because he's got something that does not exist, and I think it can transform your not only your travel life, your spirit life, wine and spirit life, but also the kind of the kind of folks and the kind of lifestyle that you want. So, last word to you, Brian.
Sure. So if people want to connect, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So Brian C. Burke, and you can connect with me there. Our company is foodfirsttravel.com. You can reach out to me via email at bburke, BURKE, at foodfirsttravel.com. And would love to, connect with your followers, connect with some of your clients. And again, I think that we are, like you said, very graciously delivering an experience that does not exist and coming through a lens that I don't think a lot of people maybe even know that they want to experience. But once they do, then they really begin to view, their travel experience as different. And the last thing I will say is we've mentioned a few different roles and a few different companies and industries that I've been in. And one thing that all of them have in common when you get branded as a consultant or a strategic advisor is a lot of the time you are absorbing a negative problem and coming up with a solution to fix it. And there's plenty of money to be made in that. And, I've enjoyed a lot of those moments. But moving forward with Food First Travel, we have an opportunity to be involved in the best moments of people's weeks, months, years, and lives. And that to me is a very different experience than trying to take someone's negative problem and come up with a solution for it. So we look forward to helping being perfect moment creators, which is not my term. That's a Robin Sharma term, but I will steal it for now. And we look forward to connecting with your listeners.
Well, I think that's one of the things. There's not anything. There's no new. I appreciate you give credit to some people you heard it from, but it is amazing how people just continue to repackage in a slightly different way a lot of things. But I truly think what you're creating is something that does not exist in the marketplace, and I want everybody to at least check it out with you, because I think it's if you've had one bad food or wine experience or something that didn't live up to your expertise, to your expectations, I think Brian can help solve that for you. So, Brian, thank you, my friend, for taking time out of your busy day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark, and I hope to break bread with you soon.
Thank you.